this recording we'll discuss eye physiology. So you know that your eyes are responsible for your vision, okay? Your vision is technically what we perceive as light being reflected off of the objects that we are looking at. Okay? Now there is a specific pathway, your visual pathway, for light to pass through the eye. So we start by going through the cornea. We have to go through the anterior cavity with all the aqueous humor. We're going to go through the pupil. We're going to hit the lens. Okay? Once we refract the lens, we're going to keep going through the posterior cavity. Have to go through all that vitreous humor that we've talked about. Our goal is to hit the photoreceptors on the posterior region of the eye. We would really like to hit the fovea centralis. Remember, that's where we get the clearest, sharpest vision. Once we hit the photoreceptors, we start to send those signals through the optic nerve to the brain for processing. Now, you have two eyes. And they kind of see the same thing, but they kind of see different things all at the same time. So we have what's called visual field. Okay, so each of your eyes, the visual field is what that eyeball sees all by itself, even though you have both eyes open. I know, it's kind of weird. Okay, so your left eye sees certain things, your right eye sees certain things. There you go. Now your field, this visual field, will be divided into lefts and rights, obviously. You have a left eye and a right eye. And center is the focal point. Okay. Now, the retina of each of your eyeballs, okay, is going to detect stimuli, visual stimuli, from parts or portions of each of your visual fields, so the left and the right. Okay. Now, some of the axons are going to carry visual stimuli. We're going to cross at the optic chiasma, okay? Which basically means some things, some stimuli that are coming from your right visual field are actually processed by your left hemisphere and vice versa, okay? This crossing this optic chiasma is really just the location where crossing over is going to take place, okay? It literally looks like a cross or an X, where you've got these bundles of axons. And again, we're only going to cross certain ones from left to right and right to left. Okay. This location itself, this optic chiasma, is going to be just below your hypothalamus. So here we go. All right. So this is the chiasma, this X, this cross. Now, I think this picture really helps. So you can see you got your left eye. This is everything that you see. This is your left visual field, and this is your right eye, and this is your right visual field. You can see that there is some crossover, there's some overlap here, okay? And the center is that focal point. Now, here's what's interesting. Let's look at the colors. You've got some parts of your visual field, okay? The red is coming from the right side. The blue got from the left visual field. Now, look and see what happens here. The red from the left eye, as we go through the chiasm, actually stays on the left side. Okay, but this blue portion coming from the left eye in the chiasm, it's going to cross over, and that will be processed in the right side of the brain. And the same thing happens with the right eye. So this information coming from the right eye stays on the right side, gets processed in the right side of the brain, but this portion of the right eye crosses over, and that information will get processed in the left side of the brain. Okay, so not everything crosses over. Okay, we've got some portions from both eyes that cross over, and some portions from both eyes that stay on the same side. Okay, this lets us fill in all of these gaps. Okay, we're not going to have any gaps if we can help it. This gives us that 180 degree-ish field of vision. Now, once we have crossed over, or not, okay, once we've gone through the chiasm at least, the axons that come out of the chiasm, these are called your optic tracts, okay? Once we move through the optic tracts, okay, we continue to go through what's called the optic radiations. These are nerves that we're going to have to go through the temporal and the parietal lobes, because where are we ultimately going? We're ultimately trying to get to the occipital lobe. Okay, so we're going to have to take, let me go back, here we go. So we've gone through the chiasm, we're going to keep on going. We're going to have to go all the way through the temporal, through the parietal lobes. We're aiming for the occipital lobe. Okay, we're aiming for the occipital lobe. So eventually we're going to hit the occipital lobe. We're going for the primary visual cortex. Okay, and remember, we're going to have a left side and a right side so we can process information from both eyes. This lets us become consciously aware that we are seeing something. Okay, this gives us basic shape, color, movement, location, things like that. Then we have to integrate that information in your visual association areas. Okay, and any other areas that we might need. This lets us figure out exactly what we're looking at. Some of the other integration areas also let us determine whether or not we need to have some sort of motor response to what we're looking at. Okay, so perhaps you see zombies running towards you. Okay, so the visual information is, oh, there's something running towards me. Your brain's like, oh wait, those are zombies. Oh wait, we should probably run away. Okay, that's probably going to need a different motor response to if you compare that to you looking at just a field of flowers. Okay, you're looking at them, you're receiving those sensory inputs, your brain is processing them, and you're like, pretty flowers. You don't necessarily need a motor response for that. Alright, same picture. We have crossed over or not the chiasm. We're going to have to go through the temporal and parietal lobes. We're going for that visual cortex and the visual association areas for processing. Alright, so just kind of to review real quick, we've taken light from the cornea through the anterior cavity, we've gone through the pupil, we've hit the lens. Then we had to go through the vitreous humor of the posterior cavity. We're aiming to hit those photoreceptors, specifically on the fovea centralis if we can, before we send information out of the optic nerve. Okay, so once we go through the optic nerve, we have to go through the chiasm, okay, or the chiasma, however you want to say it. We'll take that information through the optic tracts. The thalamus, remember the thalamus is deciding where to send those signals. Okay, we'll hit those association fibers to get them all the way back to the occipital lobe for processing. Now, clear vision, normal vision, requires that the light coming into our eye be focused on the retina, not in front of it and not behind it. If that doesn't happen, you will probably be suffering from some sort of vision problem. Okay, so there are a couple of steps, a couple of things that have to happen. Okay, so the lens has to focus on the object that you are looking at. Light that is coming into the eye has to be refracted or bent, because of the fact that we're going to have to go through all those layers. We're going to have to go through the aqueous humor, the vitreous humor, the lens itself. We're going to have to refract it or bend it to make sure that we are hitting the fovea centralis, that focal point, okay, on the retina. Okay, remember that's in the posterior region of the eye. Now, the distance between the lens and the focal point, we call this your focal distance. Okay, so just kind of FYI, your focal distance. Now, the distance from an object to the lens increases the focal distance. So depending on where the object you are looking at is it close up? Is it kind of just a little farther away from you, or is it really way off in the distance? That has an effect on the focal distance. Okay. Your lens can change shape, okay, to change the focal length in order for us to be able to focus on things in our field of view. Okay, so again, depending on if you're looking at something close up, just a little farther away, or if you're looking at something far off in the distance. We call this change accommodation. Okay, so your lens is able to accommodate for you based on where the object is in your field of view. Now, if your lens works perfectly, okay, if it accommodates normally, if it's changing that focal length and that focal distance appropriately to where the light is still being focused on your fovea centralis, then you have normal vision. We call this ametropia. Ametropia, which is kind of hard to say. Now, if your lens doesn't quite work like it should, then you could suffer from one of three vision problems. You could suffer myopia or nearsightedness. Okay. If you suffer from myopia, then the distance between the cornea and the lens is too great, or your cornea is too curved. Okay. This will result in the light being focused in front of your retina, which makes objects at a distance blurry. Okay. Now, nearsightedness is exactly what it sounds like. You can see things close up. So things in the distance are blurry. If you go to the eye doctor, they would prescribe you concave lenses to fix that fix that problem. Okay? Now, you could instead suffer from hyperopia or farsightedness. Okay? Your eyeball is either too short, which is kind of funny to think about, or your cornea is too flat. This results in the lens focusing light behind the retina instead, which causes blurry vision when you are looking at things close up. So you are able to see things far away, but things right up close in your face are blurry. Your eye doctor would prescribe you a convex lens to fix this problem. And last but not least, we have presbyopia, okay, which kind of just means old eyes. This basically results from loss of elasticity of the lens as we get older. We mentioned that that was a problem as we age. We lose some elasticity to the lens. We're unable to accommodate like we used to be able to do. Sometimes patients will be prescribed just reading glasses if it's just a mild issue. For bigger issues, you might be prescribed bifocals, okay, especially if you have quote-unquote old eyes and you're nearsighted, for example. Okay. So here's kind of what it looks like. Normal vision, ametropia, right there on that fovea centralis, perfect like we want it. Myopia, nearsightedness, we are focusing too early, all right, it's in front of the retina. Okay, so we can get that concave lens to fix the issue. Hyperopia or farsightedness, now we're focusing behind the retina. Okay, so we do a convex lens instead to fix the problem. And then again, presbyopia, we're just unable to change the shape of the lens appropriately.